Poor nurse found her billionaire patient crying alone on Christmas Eve. He begged, "Stay." Hello everyone, and welcome back to Romance Rewind Stories. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying these heartwarming tales, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. It's quick, it's free, and it's the best way to support us in bringing you more emotional romance stories. And here's something I'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing our amazing community from around the world. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us grow and reach more people who love these kinds of tales. Now let's get into today's story. Poor nurse found her billionaire patient crying alone on Christmas Eve. He begged, "Stay." The hospital was eerily quiet on Christmas Eve. Most staff had gone home to their families, leaving only a skeleton crew to handle emergencies and the patients who had nowhere else to be. Paloma Reed walked the empty corridors of the private wing at St. Catherine's, her sensible shoes squeaking softly on the polished floors, checking on the few remaining patients before her shift ended at midnight. At 28, Paloma had been a nurse for 6 years, long enough to become numb to the loneliness that permeated hospitals during holidays, but not quite long enough to stop feeling it in her chest. Especially tonight, with her own small apartment waiting cold and empty, her family 3,000 miles away in California, and her bank account too, depleted from student loans to afford the flight home. She paused outside room 1207, the penthouse suite. Her last patient of the evening, Julian Moretti, 34, recovering from emergency surgery after a car accident 2 weeks ago. But unlike her other patients, Julian wasn't here because he had no choice. He was here because he'd specifically requested to stay through Christmas, even though he'd been medically cleared to leave days ago. Paloma had wondered about that. Julian Moretti was a name she'd recognized immediately. Tech billionaire, founder of Moretti Systems, regularly featured in Forbes and Business Insider. The kind of man who could recover anywhere in the world. Yet he'd chosen to spend Christmas in a hospital room. She knocked softly. "Mr. Moretti, it's Paloma, just checking vitals before shift change." No response. Frowning, she knocked again, then used her keycard to enter. The room was dark, except for the glow of the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Julian sat in the chair by the window, not in his bed, dressed in expensive pajamas that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Mr. Moretti?" she called softly. "Are you all right?" That's when she heard it. A quiet, broken sound that made her heart clench. He was crying. Paloma froze, uncertain. In 6 years of nursing, she'd seen patients cry countless times, from pain, from fear, from grief. But this felt different. This felt like a man who'd been holding something in for far too long and had finally broken. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, starting to back toward the door. "I'll come back." "No." His voice was rough, raw. "Please, don't go." She hesitated, then moved closer, her training overriding her discomfort. "Are you in pain? Do you need medication?" Julian laughed bitterly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "Not that kind of pain. The kind that morphine can't touch." Paloma should have called the psychiatrist on duty, should have followed protocol. Instead, she found herself pulling up a chair beside him. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked gently. He turned to look at her for the first time, and even in the dim light, she could see his face was devastated. Julian Moretti was objectively handsome. Dark hair, sharp features, the kind of face that photographed well on magazine covers. But right now, he looked broken. "Do you know why I'm still here?" he asked, "even though the doctors cleared me to leave?" "No," Paloma admitted. "I wondered about that." "Because I have nowhere else to go," he said simply. "No family waiting, No friends who want me around instead of what I can do for them. Just an empty penthouse and a calendar full of obligations that mean nothing. Paloma's heart ached. What about Christmas? Surely you have... My parents died when I was 19, Julian interrupted. Car accident. No siblings. Built my company from nothing, and in the process, I alienated everyone who ever actually cared about me. He looked back out the window. You know what's funny? I have $3 billion. I could buy anything in the world, but I can't buy what I want most. Someone who wants to be with me just because, not for my money, not for my connections, just me. That's not funny, Paloma said quietly. That's heartbreaking. He looked at her again, surprise flickering in his dark eyes. Most people would tell me I'm being self-pitying, that I should be grateful for what I have. Most people haven't sat with as many dying patients as I have, Paloma replied. And I can tell you, none of them wish they'd spent more time making money. They all wish they'd spent more time with people who loved them. Julian's eyes filled with tears again. I don't have people who love me, that's the problem. Then maybe, Paloma said softly, you start by being someone who's worth loving. Not Julian Moretti, the billionaire, just Julian, the person. He stared at her, something shifting in his expression. Who are you? Paloma Reed, your night nurse, though technically my shift ends in 20 minutes. And then what? He asked. You go home to your family for Christmas? Paloma smiled sadly. No, I go home to my apartment, heat up a frozen dinner, and watch whatever's on TV. My family's in California, and I can't afford the flight home this year. Understanding dawned in Julian's eyes. So we're both alone on Christmas. Looks that way. They sat in silence for a moment, two lonely people in a quiet hospital room, the city glittering outside like all those other people's happiness on display. Stay, Julian said suddenly. Please just talk to me. I'll pay you. Don't, Paloma interrupted firmly. Don't offer me money. If I stay, it's because I want to, not because you're paying me. Why would you want to? He asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Because nobody should be alone on Christmas, Paloma said simply. And because you asked me to stay, not ordered me. That matters. So she stayed. Long after her shift ended, long after she should have clocked out and gone home, Paloma sat with Julian Moretti and talked about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up with 3 siblings, about choosing nursing because her grandmother had been a nurse and it was the family tradition, about the weight of student loan debt and the satisfaction of helping people heal. He told her about building Moretti systems in a garage, about the pressure of sudden wealth and fame, about the loneliness of success when everyone wants something from you. I had a girlfriend, he admitted around 2 a.m. when Christmas Eve had officially become Christmas Day. Sophia. I thought she was different, thought she loved me for me. Turned out she was selling information about my company to competitors the entire time we were together. That's awful, Paloma said, genuinely shocked. That was 2 years ago, Julian continued. Haven't dated anyone since. Couldn't trust anyone enough to try. Not everyone is like that, Paloma said gently. How do I know? He asked, his eyes meeting hers. How do I know you're not just being nice because you think I'll give you something? You don't, Paloma admitted. But for what it's worth, I'm not. I'm here because you looked like you needed someone, and because I know what it's like to be lonely. Something changed in Julian's expression, softening, opening. You're different from anyone I've ever met. I'm a nurse with student loans and a broken heater in my apartment, Paloma said with a laugh. I'm very ordinary. No, Julian said firmly. You're not. You're kind. You're genuine. You stayed with me on Christmas when you didn't have to, and you won't let me pay you for it. That's extraordinary. Paloma felt her cheeks warm. You're just not used to basic human decency. Maybe that's the problem, he agreed. As dawn broke on Christmas morning, painting the sky pink and gold, Paloma realized she'd spent the entire night talking with Julian Moretti, and it had been one of the best conversations of her life. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "Let you rest. Will you come back?" Julian asked, and there was such vulnerability in his voice that Paloma's heart squeezed. "I work tonight," she said. "I'll check on you then." "Not as my nurse," he clarified. "As my friend?" Paloma smiled. "As your friend." When she returned that evening, she found Julian's room transformed. A small Christmas tree sat in the corner, twinkling with lights. The smell of real food, not hospital food, filled the air. "I had my assistant bring some things," Julian explained, looking almost shy. "I thought, if you were spending Christmas here with me, we should make it feel more like Christmas." "You didn't have to do this," Paloma said, but she was touched. "I wanted to," he said simply. "Besides, I've never actually decorated for Christmas before. My parents died right before the holidays, and after that I just couldn't. But you made me want to try again." They spent Christmas evening together, eating the catered dinner Julian had ordered, enough for 10 people because he wasn't sure what she'd like, watching classic Christmas movies on his tablet, and talking more. "Tell me about your family," Julian said during a lull. "What would you be doing if you were home?" Paloma's eyes misted. "My mom makes this huge Mexican feast. Tamales, pozole, buñuelos. My siblings and I would be fighting over who gets to open presents first, even though we're all adults now. My dad would be playing guitar, and we'd all sing horribly off-key." "That sounds perfect," Julian said softly. "It is," Paloma agreed. "What about you? Before your parents died?" Julian's expression grew distant. "Similar, actually. My mom was Italian, made this incredible Christmas dinner. My dad would tell terrible jokes. It was loud and chaotic and—" His voice broke. "I miss it so much." Without thinking, Paloma reached over and took his hand. "I'm sorry you lost that." Julian's fingers curled around hers, holding on like she was an anchor. "Thank you for giving me a piece of it back." Over the next week, as Julian's hospital stay officially ended, but he kept finding reasons to extend it, their connection deepened. Paloma's shifts became highlights of both their days. Other nurses started to notice, to whisper, "You know he's a billionaire, right?" her colleague Marcus said one day. "Serious money. What's he doing hanging around here?" "Recovering," Paloma said shortly. "From what?" "His injuries healed weeks ago." Marcus gave her a knowing look. "He's staying for you." The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Because somewhere along the way, Julian Moretti had stopped being just a patient. He'd become someone she thought about constantly. Someone whose smile made her day brighter. Someone she was definitely, absolutely falling for, which was completely inappropriate and destined for disaster. "You've been avoiding me," Julian said on New Year's Eve, when Paloma had tried to limit her visits to strictly professional check-ins. "I haven't," she protested weakly. "Paloma!" He caught her hand as she moved to check his vitals. "Talk to me. What changed?" "Nothing changed. That's the problem." She pulled her hand free, stepping back. "Julian, you're my patient. Whatever this is, it's not appropriate." "Then I'll discharge myself," he said immediately. "Right now. I'll leave tonight, and then I won't be your patient anymore." "And then what?" Paloma asked, frustration bleeding into her voice. "We date. You're a billionaire, Julian. I'm a nurse drowning in student debt. We live in completely different worlds." "So?" Julian stood, crossing to her. "Paloma, I don't care about different worlds. I care that you're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being instead of a bank account. I care that talking to you is the best part of my day. I care that when I think about my future, I want you in it." "You barely know me," she whispered. "I know enough," Julian said firmly. "I know you work double shifts to help pay your sister's college tuition. I know you volunteer at the free clinic on your days off. I know you cry during sappy commercials, but try to hide it. I know you take your coffee with too much cream, and you're allergic to strawberries. I know you, Paloma, the real you, and I'm falling in love with her. Paloma's eyes filled with tears. Julian, you don't have to say it back, he continued. You don't have to feel the same way. But please don't pull away because you think we're too different. Give us a chance. What if it doesn't work, she asked, her deepest fear surfacing. What if I'm not enough for your world? What if it does work? Julian interrupted, cupping her face gently. What if you're exactly what I've been missing? What if we're good together? That's a lot of what ifs, Paloma said, but she was smiling through her tears. Then let's find out the answers, Julian said. Together. When he kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, Paloma stopped fighting what she'd been feeling since Christmas Eve. Maybe this was crazy, maybe it wouldn't work, but just maybe it was exactly right. She whispered against his lips. Let's try. Julian pulled back, his smile brighter than she'd ever seen. Really? Really, Paloma confirmed. But you're discharging yourself tomorrow. I'm not dating my patient. He laughed. Deal, though I'm going to miss this room. Why? Paloma looked around the sterile hospital suite. It's a hospital room. Because it's where I found you, Julian said simply. The next 6 months were an adjustment. Julian introduced her to his world. Charity galas, business dinners, society events that made Paloma feel perpetually underdressed and out of place, despite the designer clothes Julian kept buying her. I don't fit here, she told him after one particularly awkward dinner where old money socialites had made thinly veiled comments about her common background. Good, Julian said fiercely, because this world is exhausting and fake, and you're real. Don't ever lose that. He, in turn, entered her world. Family video chats with her loud, loving California family, volunteer shifts at the free clinic where he surprised her by being genuinely helpful, dinners at her tiny apartment where they cooked together and laughed over burned pasta. This is what I wanted, Julian told her one night, washing dishes while she dried. This normalcy, this feeling like I'm just a person, not a persona. You are just a person, Paloma said, bumping his hip with hers. A person who happens to be very rich, but still a person who's very in love with you, he amended, setting down the dish to pull her close. Lucky me, Paloma teased, but her heart was full. The proposal came a year after that Christmas Eve, back in the same hospital room where they'd met. Julian had arranged everything with the hospital administration, transforming room 1207 into something magical with flowers and lights and memories. This is where my life changed, he said, kneeling before her. This is where I met the woman who saw past everything else to just me, who stayed with me when she didn't have to, who taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's the only way to really live. He pulled out a ring, beautiful but not ostentatious, chosen with care. Paloma Reed, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me? Yes, Paloma said through happy tears. 1,000 times yes. Their wedding 6 months later was a blend of both worlds, held at Julian's estate, but filled with Paloma's family's traditions. Her mother made tamales for 200 guests. Her father played guitar. Her siblings gave embarrassing speeches, and Julian's business associates sat alongside nurses from St. Catherine's, all celebrating a love that had started in the unlikeliest of places. Remember when you begged me to stay? Paloma asked as they danced, her head resting on Julian's chest. Best decision I ever made, Julian replied, holding her closer. I think finding you crying alone on Christmas Eve might be my best decision, Paloma said, even though it wasn't really a decision, just right place, right time. Right person, Julian corrected. That's what mattered, not the place or the time, but you. As they swayed together, surrounded by everyone who loved them, Paloma thought about that lonely Christmas Eve 2 years ago. She'd been a broke nurse going home to an empty apartment. He'd been a billionaire with everything money could buy, but nothing that actually mattered. And somehow, in a quiet hospital room, they'd found exactly what they both needed. Because sometimes the greatest gifts don't come wrapped in boxes. Sometimes they come in the form of human connection. A nurse who stays when she doesn't have to. A man who asks her to stay instead of commanding. And two lonely hearts that find each other on Christmas and decide to stay together forever. And that's where our story ends today. What did you think? Did Julian and Paloma's Christmas miracle touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was. If you enjoyed this story, we have so many more waiting for you. Check out our playlist for more heartwarming romance tales that will make you believe in love all over again. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and remember, the best stories are the ones that remind us we all deserve our happily ever after. See you in the next story.